SaaS Alerts. I'll start again. Welcome,
Sorry
everybody.
about
It's
that.
episode 2. It's okay, Michelle, of the community call here with SaaS Alerts. And I'm going to bring up the agenda for everybody. We'll kick things off. Jim, before I just run through the agenda here, anything you want to kind of recap from last time? I thought the first call was awesome. We had really good interaction for our first call because, like I said, I've done these and your community is really active. So it's awesome to see.
Yeah, Andrew, thanks. I think we started off last week, really well, and we're building momentum. And this is all about, like we talked about last week, educating our members on how we can better protect their customers, allow them to increase their revenue, and also reduce their labor costs. So I know we're going to be getting to a lot of stuff, and in terms of what's new and hitting on a lot of those objectives, with all those new features and functions. So I couldn't be happier, and I know that week over week we're just going to keep the momentum going. So super pumped about it.
Yeah. Well, it's awesome that you guys are doing this. It makes a big difference for having the community see what you're doing, be able to communicate what and have input in your features, roadmaps, and give input. There was a lot of that last week. A lot of people actually, had questions about new release, the new release. They had questions about previous release features, and this is what it's all about. Okay, so real quick, I'm Andrew Morgan. Jim was kind enough to have me come in and moderate, and I'm gonna get right on into intros. Liron is with us. He heads up product along with Chip, or the CTO. We're going to have Ryan Riccardi, Director of Customer Success, as well, on talking about a few different things. We have a pretty aggressive agenda. And what I mean by that is a lot of times when we get into product updates, which Chip and Liron will do, we hope we have a lot of interaction in that. And based on last week, we will. So we may not get through everything, but we have an action-packed one today, as you can see. So as far as you can see here, we have product updates. We're going to get into something called Canny. Canny, we talked briefly about last week. I'm not sure if anybody, maybe just yes or no, has ever worked with one of the vendors out there that uses Canny. But if you haven't, it's fantastic. It's a solution where you can suggest features. You can upvote, downvote things, if you will, in terms of those feature requests. And based on that, the team can then make decisions. And it's not operating in a vacuum, nor are you kind of blind to what are the things that the community at large really wants. So it's a fantastic tool, a really transparent tool. Again, kudos to Jim and team for embracing something like that. Then we're going to get into Ben Jones. Ben was the winner. Jim, what was the quote unquote contest and award again?
Yeah, we got a contest called the Cool Rules Challenge.
Okay.
And it was based on our MSP partners creating rules within our Respond module.
Okay.
Because it's one big, customizable rules engine. So we got a lot of submissions from people that had rules, and Ben, not surprisingly, won, because he is, since the second that we launched Respond, he has been in there playing around with it. So he had a great role, and he won. But we ended up giving away, I think it was $8,500 in total. He won the $5,000 prize, and then we had a $2,500 prize and a $1,000 prize. So we think we're probably going to do that again at some point, maybe in December, because the response was so great.
Excellent. Maybe we'll do something like referrals and things like that, because I think your members are probably, like most MSPs, talk to other people in their peer groups and communities about it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and then if we get into it, it's called the You Don't Know This segment. This is Ryan gets on a lot of calls as the Director of Customer Success, and people say, hey, we're not using the tool, or we're thinking of, only using it for this way, for not these customers, because you don't do this. And a lot of times there's misconceptions are just that. And so we'll get into that. Speaking of misconceptions, we're going to end up with some emerging threats and security misconceptions. So with that, let me hand it over to Chip and Liron to get into the new features and roadmap.
Hey, Andrew, before we turn it over to Liron and Chip, I just want to make sure in terms of review,
Yes,
we're not going to go into it like we did last time, but just making sure, because we didn't record last week's, that was our bad. But in terms of making sure everyone goes in and understands the stale account feature that we created, in terms of getting rid of those, guest user accounts, those stale accounts. That was a feature that was released a few weeks ago, and we just want to make sure people are aware of that. We've seen some progress, Andrew. When we look at our numbers, some people are actually going in and using the technology to automate that process and delete those accounts. So we just want to keep seeing more of those deletions come through.
yeah, awesome. That's great to hear, Jim. All right. Do I need to make Liron and or Chip host for them to be able to share?
They should be able to share now.
Okay, perfect.
I plan to just talk about what we're currently working on, as well as some really interesting ideas that I've heard over the past week. So as far as what we call epics, which are really big features that we're currently working on, one of the most requested features that we've had partners ask us for is the ability to segment their customers inside of SaaS Alerts so that specific users can only access certain organizations. So we call this functionality groups, and we've worked with a few MSPs to get some early design feedback as far as that goes. But the general idea there is that you're going to create a group, you're going to assign organizations to that group, and you're going to assign users to that group. And then when those users log into SaaS Alerts, they will be limited in visibility to those organizations. So one use case for this is for the MSSPs, so the very, very large partners that we have. Another use case is we've had partners repeatedly ask us, hey, I want to get my customers in here so that they can see what we're monitoring, but you obviously don't want them looking at anyone else's data. So this is the first iteration, the first phase of this. And then after that, we plan on creating another feature, which will allow you to create custom-based roles. So one popular use case for this is for your accountant. So you want the accountant to go in and maybe look at one specific report, and that's it. So you'd be able to go in, configure, call it a finance user, and the finance user logs in and can only see that one report. But basically the idea is going to be you create a custom role and you can assign specific permissions to that role in terms of what that person can and can't do.
Liron, will it get down to role and act, obviously like ability to do certain features, like I'm assuming then the audience chime in, the partners chime in, co-managed, where maybe an IT department wants to be able to do certain functions. Is it going to be to that granularity?
Yeah, so I'd be interested to definitely get feedback in terms of how granular we should make it. The way that we're currently thinking about it is basically on a screen by screen or feature by feature capability. So for example, should this custom role have access to the overview screen? Should it have access to critical alerts? Should it have access to organizations? Organizations is a particularly interesting one because you can do things inside of organizations, such as add an organization, delete an organization. So, the open question to you guys is, should the custom, when you create a custom role, should you be able to control the CRUD access? In other words, this role can create but cannot delete. This role can update but cannot create. So those are the kinds of things that we're considering and thinking about as a secondary phase after we get through groups.
That's really cool. And anybody want to chime in that has co-managed that might have an opinion on what kind of functionality they'd want to downstream to a client?
Yeah, it's a good question, Andrew. I'm really curious to see, because we have had, to Leron's point, we've had a lot of folks ask for this functionality, because seemingly right now most MSPs have co-managed customers, right? At least even the smallest of the small have one or two that have internal IT that they want to be able to work with in a collaborative manner, and this would allow them to be able to do that. So we'd love to hear people's feedback on what they think of this. We call it role-based access.
Yeah, like for us, we're relatively small. We don't compartmentalize our engineers, but I do like the idea of roles where I can limit what they can do. Sort of things like at the administrative level versus the technical administration. I don't think it would be much different for our co-managed clients from the perspective of, if I give them access to their company and only their company, being able to get into the alerts and do some of the basic suppressions, or maybe or maybe not access to the rules, for example. But it's also one of those things that sometimes seeing a start and seeing how things work, say, oh, it would be nice if we could extend it here. So you might not, sometimes it's better not to over engineer until you find out that there's really need to get that much deeper.
Cool. Thanks, Gary.
Gary, do you have any clients that you co-manage with?
We do, but as I think through them, I'm not sure that any of them, if we were using them on this platform, would really need to get in and dig. A couple of them might want to, or one of them might want to see the alerts, but rely on us to help really do the administration, because that would be under our purview on our side of the house anyway.
Jim, just curious, have you guys ever positioned this to IT or MSPs as the shadow IT type thing for, because of for example, Salesforce as an example, and things of that nature?
Yeah. So it's one of the questions that we've definitely gotten in terms of, hey, what other apps can we see people are using? And we see it right now. We haven't spent a lot of time essentially reporting on it or surfacing it. That's something that will be down the road. But that actually brings up a great point. Like, we should ask that question, like, a shadow IT report, is that something that people would find valuable?
Yeah, for us, the reporting is key. Being able to pass back information as to the value of the product and the things that we're seeing. Both, I'd actually say it's not a whole lot different for QBR type presentation. It's not going to be any different, I don't think, for our co-managed IT people. Similar information, I think.
Okay. I think someone else started to talk.
Oh yeah, I was saying that also the external file sharing reports and just the report section in general would be great. I think our customers would find value in that.
You mean sharing those reports with them, Ben? Yeah. I think role-based access will definitely help from a reporting perspective on that. I think people do find those reports fascinating. I know I do. I even like looking what I've done, and I know what I did.
We've sold a lot of MFA with that. That's for sure.
Yeah,
we've had
Ben,
a lot of.
Do you share scheduled reports with your customers today from the reports?
Not typically. We try to meet with them. When we try to do the QBRs, or at least once every 6 months, we'll bring those reports and share that with them. We've had a couple of medical clients that, we've been able to bring them the SaaS reports and saying, hey, your employees are, are sharing out these files with OneDrive. Here's a file name which clearly has a patient's name in it, and I'm sure within that PDF there's a HIPAA violation. Can we use this to restrict what you can do with SharePoint? So we use the reports a lot. We've had a couple of law firms that do have IT people that are on staff that do try to monitor what their employees are doing as far as with SharePoint.
Mhm. Cool.
Do you see the utility, Ben? And thanks for volunteering, because I love to get the chance to interview people about and see if our vision matches up. Do you see the utility of sharing those external file share reports with your customers and then following up with them with a report on stale accounts, particularly guest accounts that were created automatically through a file share? And let's get rid of these because we really don't need these documents hanging out there to be accessed anymore. Do you see that matching the two of them together makes sense?
For sure. When I got into the stale or even the guest accounts, I was surprised on how many of those had never been signed in before, but were just kind of out there. I think I deleted about 200 accounts myself. So, but yeah, definitely.
Ben, did you find the tool helpful in terms of making that easier?
Oh yeah, tremendously. Saved me a lot of time. A couple of the jobs ran and they couldn't delete a user for one reason or another. But I think that might have been because they're already scheduled to be deleted at some point in time in the future.
Got it. Cool.
Yeah, Jim, it sounds like there's, certainly utility, whether it is medical, whether it's financial, because again, because you can monitor drop and Dropbox and OneDrive and things like that, moving files. I mean, like to me, like my marketing hat's on right now. And if I'm an MSP, I'm thinking about potential, as Ben was saying, violations from a regulatory perspective. So it's kind of like this shadow IT / regulatory, like there's this whole kind of shadow view that you could give executives, and then MSPs could position in as a from a go-to-market strategy or even an audit strategy potentially in a security assessment.
Right. I know we don't have an upvote downvote software in place right now, but if folks in the chat could just put in, if you would like to see a shadow IT report in the solution, just put Y in there. That would be helpful. Okay.
Are you expecting any ends, Jim?
Well, I don't know. I mean, maybe people just, they're like, oh, that's not that important to me.
It's certainly an enhancement that we can look at, but in the meantime, while our engineering team would develop that, to sort of create that data for your next QBR, for those of you who do them, you can use the analysis package segment inside of SaaS Alerts and just pick the company and search for any OAuth usage, and that effectively is the same information as we would use to call together a shadow IT report. So it's wherever they're using OAuth to connect to some foreign application. The only word of caution there is that since Azure AD is the source of OAuth, Microsoft actually reports connecting to their own applications as foreign, believe it or not. So that you'll see, like for instance, Outlook Web Access pop up as a foreign application. So you can filter those out of the report data, but you can see all the other stuff that people connect to, whether it's Canva or a backup system, or who knows. There's 10,000 SaaS apps out there, and as one of our other team members who's not with us here right now, no, he's not, pointed out to me, hey, I'm using 3 of them that you guys, that we don't even know about, because I don't use OAuth to connect them. I do it all from my local device. But there's a mechanism in place for you today to pull together that data to share with your customers, even before we create, an executive style graphic report around it.
Well, along with the other thing I've been noticing, because unfortunately right now I'm still reviewing those alerts. One of the alerts for permission changes to Exchange, I daily am getting 2 or 3 where Microsoft keeps adjusting their permissions for the search mailboxes and things of that nature. And I'm afraid to turn it off because I'm afraid that if somebody's hacked and somebody's trying to change permissions in a malicious way, I won't get that, but I don't really give a crap if it's coming from Microsoft itself internally. Is there a way for us to kind of differentiate those two?
Yeah, Gary, that's a recent development. As probably many of you have, know within the past, I think it's probably 45 days, Microsoft en masse changed mailbox permissions across virtually all of their tenants. We saw millions and millions of events get created using the NT service account to do that. So we have an item in our backlog already to create the option to ignore NT service accounts for those kinds of changes. Today, you could use the suppression feature to suppress the NT service account with that event specifically, and then you wouldn't see those show up as medium or critical alerts. There is some real danger though, and in particular, Leron, myself, some of our engineering team have discussed this. Obviously, if you were to effectively whitelist the NT service account for anything it wants to do, if there's ever an exploit that uses the NT service account that Microsoft doesn't catch right away, then all of us get caught with our pants down. And we have a concern about that, and I think our reaction to it is going to be to leave it to the MSP to make a determination how they want to handle it. We're in the, I think, sometimes unenviable position of needing to make SaaS alerts more noisy than even we would want it to be if we were the MSP. But we have to do that in order to make sure that the MSP is aware that they need to make the choices. That make sense?
Yeah, and that's why I haven't done anything about it, because I'm afraid to. I honestly don't understand the implications. And I also don't understand why they keep making adjustments to these mailboxes over and over and over again. Because each tenant, we don't have that many other SaaS alerts, I'm getting it a couple of times a week.
Yeah, unfortunately, we don't have an answer from anybody at Microsoft that gives us insight as to why they're doing it. Right. Other than there are plenty of articles out there you can read that Microsoft is making these changes wholesale.
Yeah. I haven't looked that deeply. I just hit delete.
One change that we just got hit October 1st, they disabled basic authentication, and all of the room schedulers that we had, resource mailboxes with login enabled, stopped working. So there's a patch that will work between now and December 31st. But to be able to run a report on all of the resource mailboxes with login enabled, which I didn't think was a thing. Are you guys still there?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
I actually think you can do that with using the account management feature that we've recently added to organizations. You can certainly look for accounts that are shared mailbox accounts.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so these are, this is resource / shared mailbox, but and you have to go in with a PowerShell script and enable login capabilities for these room schedulers. And we're getting more commercial properties where because the property owner does not have an IT team, and the property management and the property leasing companies are different, and then the technology company that comes in and installs everything. So there's a really weird niche that we've kind of stumbled upon, but it is where they're unicorns, and we're just trying to hurt them.
Ed, I want to make sure I understand. So Microsoft is recommending the workaround for removing basic auth, which they announced this back in, I think, April, that they
Yeah.
were going to do this in October. They're recommending the workaround as to enable sign-in on shared mailbox and resource accounts.
No, it's that the only or the only way to let the automated system for the room schedulers work is basic authentication. They don't have an ability for MFA or ability to respond on behalf of that inanimate object to accept the meeting request for the room. It's
Right.
it's a really odd one, but it's something that
But how can that work? If they've disabled basic auth, how can you continue to use it?
there's a script to do to re-enable it through
Oh.
December 31st until they figure out, until the companies come up with a solution that works with modern authentication.
Got it.
So that's so there's going to be a ton of IoT devices that are going to just go offline or not be able to work until they update their software.
Right.
Chip, thoughts on
And
how?
where do they expect you to run that script in order to impact an Azure AD tenant?
It's in, I mean, you have to go into Azure AD and there's a procedure that you run, and then you say which type of basic authentication, whether it's web, whether it's POP and IMAP, whether it's, so you have to specify which one you want to re-enable and run that script. You don't even see the script. It's just a checkbox on a list,
Right.
and you run it and it re-enables it, and it gives you the warning that, yeah, this is going to work until December 31st, and then your options are 0.
Interesting.
Nice.
So let me just jump in.
Yeah.
And maybe we get Liron back because this has been great, and I love the interaction. Liron, any few other things that you might want to talk about in terms of what you're thinking?
Yeah, so 3 more things. So this is something that we touched on last week, and hearing Jim talk about the contest, my vote would be to have a new contest after we release this new feature, which is what we're calling the account-based respond rules. In other words, as Ben had mentioned, he cleaned up 200. So after the initial cleanup, we want to give you the tools to have proactive cleanup. So ideally, you never have to do this again. So for instance, you would create a rule that says if it's a guest account and the last sign in is greater than 60 days, then expire all logins and block sign in. So basically from here on out, you have an automatic system that is going to take care of all those guest accounts for you. So that's kind of the next iteration of Respond. We plan to complete the design on that one this week, and then we'll get into the development and testing. The next 2 items are interesting ideas that I heard from partners, and this is another Respond sort of feature set, and that is the idea of blacklisting. So in other words, if a user logs in from North Korea or Russia, expire all logins and block the sign in. So I think that's a very interesting rule. So we're certainly going to be taking a look at that. And then this next one is from an MSP that's actually planned to be traveling all over Europe. So they're going to be generating all sorts of outside approved location alerts. So the ask was, well, I'd love to be able to go and set a whitelisting rule, which is something that you can do, but that's more intended to handle where you live. So can I go set a temporary whitelisting rule that says I am going to be in Italy starting on the 10th of the month through the 20th of the month? And then that you set that rule one time for your employee or your end user. The rule is effective, and then it just kicks off. So that way you don't get any false flags. So I just thought that those were two particularly interesting ideas that I just wanted to throw out there and see what people think about.
Any feedback on this? You want to, go ahead, sir, please. Is someone going to say something?
No, but I'm very curious.
You want to start with the first one again? Go ahead, Ben, please.
I'm definitely interested in that. And I always thought like a snooze button or something too, for certain alerts. We have had people go on vacation, and it was, all of a sudden Canada's popping up, and we're like, "Is somebody in there from Canada going on vacation?" "Oh yeah, sure." And then we're like, "Okay, well, all right, team, ignore this alert for a little while. We're just going to stick it on hold." So yeah, definitely something like that would be great.
Cool. It's one good vote. From a guy I know who will use it.
Adam, can you come on from?
Yeah, hi Andrew.
Hey, bud, how are you?
Good,
Good
thanks.
to see you. So Chip was curious about what you meant with auto.
Yeah, it was the first one that was mentioned there. Having a rule that would automatically sign out and block logins for an account that was having suspicious login attempts would be successful login attempts from strange places would be really good. We use a different tool for monitoring logins already, and that does have that snooze ability. So that would be a good feature to add to SaaS Alerts. But it doesn't have the ability to automatically block login attempts and sign people out. So that would be really good.
Great.
So that is actually built in to respond already, Adam. Both of those actions you can take based upon any one of the events that we currently have or event combinations that you define. You can immediately log that account out and subsequently block sign in. You can combine those two actions together and secure an account immediately based upon that. So we can help you.
Now, is
that's
it?
Something that it is available now. It's been available since we released Respond. Anyone on our onboarding team or myself or Liron can help you see how to define that rule. I actually think we might have a rule template for that specifically already.
Yeah, well, thank you. I had a look earlier actually, and we haven't actually enabled Respond, so that's probably why I don't know about that feature.
Yeah, exactly. But this is exactly why we're doing this call, Adam.
Yeah.
So Adam, it's a great suggestion, by the way. We love it.
Yeah, we love it so much we already did it. This is exactly why we're doing this call. So one of the things that I've found in talking to a lot of partners is that people probably know about 50%, in generally speaking, probably 50% of what we can actually do, and they're not aware of the other 50%. So we want to make sure everyone knows, all the great things they can do within this platform.
Jim, I'm curious, just because we've been talking product a lot, and I hope we get to Canny soon, if there's no other comments on Liron's, but I'm curious on go-to-market and, positioning and things like that. Is that something folks just Y or N are you guys interested in, from go-to-market, sales, assessment, positioning, as far as an upcoming, if we brought someone on for that?
You mean go to market, like in terms of how they're taking it to market?
Yeah. For example, how Thrive, for example, you're telling me their use case and how they were able to pick up a lot of MRR. So would that be helpful for people?
Yeah. Yeah, I would love to understand that as well. Because some of these use cases we've actually already built templated go-to-market campaigns around. For instance, to the point where we actually have something called the MRR guarantee. So essentially, we'll take whatever your user base is across your entire base of customers. We'll cut that in half and then times it by 3. And that's how much recurring revenue we can guarantee in 60 days if you follow our methodology. And if we don't accomplish that for you, we'll pay you $1,000.
So I'm curious, Jim, do people know about that? Yes or no? If you could put in chat. No.
So
Adam. Jim,
Okay.
I think I'm putting people to sleep. We can't even get yeses or nos here.
well, Adam seems to like it, so that's good.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah. So go to market wise, it is important though, and we can share a lot in terms of what other people are doing there.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, cool. Well, Liron, do you think we should wrap up there on product and move on to Canny?
Yeah, that's all I had.
All right, awesome. Ryan, are you with us?
Can you hear me?
We got you
Yes.
now. Yeah. Perfect.
So you want to talk about Canny?
Yeah, we do.
So I was going to engage Chip with that as well, because I know we're assessing it right now. I'm assuming most of you guys know what it is or understood from Andrew's description early on, what exactly we'd be looking to accomplish there. What we want to avoid as a vendor, just to be clear, I've worked for a couple of the larger ones in the space, and I know sometimes development can get into a habit of thinking they've got a great idea and forgetting to ask the people who are going to use it if they care. So a lot of things like, oh, let's make this radial button actually like pop up when you mouse over it, so you know you're moused over it. And they're like, don't do that, just fix this report that doesn't work. So we're talking about ultimately using a platform that would let you guys have some visibility into the ideas of what we're going to move forward with next, and give you the opportunity to effectively like Reddit upvote, downvote what you want. I don't know how many of you know this, and I'm not going to ask you to yes or no in the chat, but you can do that currently. You can ask for feature requests and feature improvements from inside of the platform from the bottom left. Just go and type in enhancement, and it'll give you a pop out to type in whatever you're looking for. But we don't get a whole lot of engagement on that. And I don't know if it's because it's buried or just because you guys don't know it's there. So would it be beneficial if adamant head nods will be acceptable? And would you guys leverage a platform that allowed you to see what our wireframe was, what our next steps were planned to be, and give you the ability to say, yes, that would help me, or no, that's not quite of an interest to me, which would literally level them up in our dev cycle.
I always love seeing that stuff.
Go ahead, Chip.
No, I was just commenting on a big thumbs up from Ed.
Yeah, big thumbs up, and we got some yeses. So maybe you were putting them to sleep, Andrew, because they're saying yes to me on Canny.
I think I did.
Yeah.
You're much more engaging.
Woke a few of them up. So are you, any of you guys that said yes, or anyone who didn't say yes? Alan also gave us a thumbs up in an icon format. Thank you. Familiar with Canny, or do any of your vendors use it? I'd like
I don't know what the background is, but many of our vendors use something similar, whether it's that back end or similar. And my personal problem, I do like doing it, but if I don't remember to go into it for a while, it kind of sits there in the background and forgotten.
Yeah, I think maybe it'd be valuable if we do implement this or something similar to Canny, and we'll make a note of it. Maybe it'll be a few minutes of when Liron goes over product stuff, we'll say, hey, here, you take a look in Canny. This is the things that we're looking for. You guys take a minute, pop in and tell us which ones you like versus the yeses and nos in chat here.
Yeah, I think that, along with, the communications from Michelle, embedding that in the weekly community call, like here's the latest, kind of trending, different things like that for awareness.
And in the short term, just a little plug, if you guys wouldn't mind, any of you that are interested and leverage Slack or would be open to it, we did create a community channel in our Slack that has pretty much everyone you see at the top of your screen up here engaged in it. If you would like to be invited to it, so we can kind of chat through what our plans are for next week and the following weeks, and to discuss where we are with these implementations, we'd love to have you in that chat. Even if you just have a quick question you want to ask, you'll have all the right people in there. So if you'd like to be invited to the Slack channel, please let us know.
Good.
And how would you like those requests?
I got Ben Jones and Adam saying, yes, please, I'd love that. I'm going to assume because you made that
Okay.
comment, you would like to be there too.
Well, unfortunately, I've gotten away from Slack, but I could make exceptions.
Okay, we'd love it if you would.
Awesome. Yeah, but I'll tell you what, Ryan, you did a hell of a job. Way more interaction than I
I'm just not as intimidating as you are, Andrew.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I just thought it was the Dolphins helmet in the back.
Don't point out my failings as a human, please.
No, it's the yellow spot in the background. That's what does.
It's green spot, but I'm not quite as fancy.
Green
as you.
spot.
Yeah.
Too funny. Okay, well, awesome.
Yeah, that was what I was gonna say. It's probably just Adam, or excuse me, it's Andrew overload. Yeah, you're on so many calls per week, as Andrew's mentioning there.
Fantastic. Anything else right now, Ryan?
On the canny front, no. I was going to point out, I know we have the you don't know this or you don't do this little part there. Chip kind of stole all of my thunder because a lot of the questions you guys asked or pointed out the things that you would like to do are what I was going to focus on. And I'm happy if we have the time when we get to the other things. Show the analysis tab. We do get a lot of requests from our incumbent partners who leverage us pretty heavily that come back and say, hey, this guy quit. And oddly enough, right after he quit, some interesting things occurred. We'd love to know what he touched. The analysis tab is very beneficial for that. On the other side of that, there's also the ability to track everything that's been done in SaaS Alerts. Who's logging in, who's changing rules, who's saying yes or no to respond rules when they come through, who's adding and deleting organizations. It's a very valuable tool. So if you guys are comfortable with it, we can do it here, or you guys can always reach out to me, Ryan@SaaSalerts.com, and we'll set up a 30-minute chat just to walk through the parts that you're not quite comfortable with in the platform.
Just how about a yes or no? Are you guys familiar with the analysis piece that Ryan was mentioning? And let's just see what they think. Not in depth. Okay.
I know Ben loves it. He's shown me some of the stuff that I didn't figure out that you guys would benefit from it.
No, but aside, I mean, I would think, again, this goes back to the initial feature that Leron was talking about, especially, if I'm an IT department or if I'm a co-managed, larger size organization where there's a lot of turnover, Ryan, I got to believe that's probably pretty important. No?
Yeah. I mean, if you want, I can take 5 minutes real quick and just kind of show you guys where it is.
We're on it right now. Let's do it.
All right.
And then we'll talk to Ben.
Let me know you guys can see my screen okay?
Yep.
Yes.
All right, so about midways down here, and forgive me for looking to the left, midways down here, you have this analysis tab. If you go into this, it effectively gives you the ability to filter all of the alerts that you're seeing by your partners, by the accounts, and by the products that you're managing across a date range. So I was playing around in here just now, actually looking to see inside of the SaaS Alerts manage what some of our guys had done as far as adding and deleting our organizations. But this is, again, specific to SaaS Alerts manage. If you wanted to go in as for an example and see all the Microsoft alerts that were critical for a specific organization or pinned down to an exact partner, you can do that and say, type in their name and what kind of events you're looking for. And it'll actually filter that out and show you everything that occurs in that date range. And then you can use these drop downs to say, okay, well, I'm going to pick on somebody, Art Test here. What has he been up to? We're a little bit concerned about his access to SharePoint and what he's been doing with things. So we can hit file event download and we can see all of the things that have occurred. Now, keep in mind, this is not a demo environment. This is a test environment. So if you see this many critical outside of approved location downloads, you should panic. But the premise still fits. If we know, for example, that we believe there may have been a successful login from outside of an approved location that was actually a threat, it's good to know that. And with Respond, it's good to stop that. But it's also really valuable to go in and see what else they did while they were in there. And the last use case I had was somebody had said, hey, we caught it and we stopped it, but I'd really like to know if there's any other steps we have to take. So we went through this exercise and we found out that while they were in there, because they didn't have Respond set up to automatically take them out, while they were in there, the next steps they did was set up a forwarding rule, modified the mailbox permissions, and removed a bunch of stuff. So we were able to use the analysis tab to do a deep dive after the breach, to Ben's point, to establish the things that they had to go back and undo, remove those mailbox permissions, stop that forwarding rule, and then go ahead and reset the password and let the person back in. So if you suspect weird behavior internally, or you suspect that there was a breach, this is a really good method to go through and establish what exactly occurred. And on the SaaS management platform part, and this was going to be in the you don't do this thing, you have the ability to kind of police your internal users as well. What are they up to? What are they downloading? What are they sharing? One of the examples during the IT Glue little hiccups a few months ago was seeing somebody touch a ton of IT Glue passwords in a row. Go ask them what they were doing, and they're like, well, with IT Glue going down, I just exported a lot of those passwords because I was going to need them over the next couple of days, which is not okay behavior. But this module in the analysis tab specifically allowed us to show them who they touched and what they did with it. So you should use this heavily anytime you're trying to demonstrate odd behavior from a specific user. Any questions or comments on that one?
I'm just going to pipe in finally, and I'll say, we've even used the analyze piece just for common user errors with legitimate users. For instance, the file delete feature, if you've massaged your threshold correctly, it's proven invaluable for us a couple times because, we have SharePoint shares. Many users are accessing them. All of a sudden, one user thinks it's okay or accidentally deletes the folder. And this has given us the ability to piece that back together to not only restore the files for them, but to let them know, hey, this was the user that did this, by accident. And, that's helped us out. So it can be used both ways. So.
Awesome. Thank you, Zachary.
I think that's an awesome feature you guys have.
An often overlooked one that has a lot of value behind
it. Yeah. I gotta believe.
Hey,
go.
Okay.
Go, Ben, please.
I was just going to say, Zachary, we actually, it was one of the rules that we submitted to the contest was a one that monitored for a large amount of deleted files in OneDrive or SharePoint and sent an alert to us. So if you had like a user that deleted like 500 files within an hour or something like that, then you said, oh, well, something might be going on here that needs to be brought to our attention. We had one that was also someone downloaded that many files and then deleted them. Might be someone trying to do some malicious things.
Yeah, in case people.
I want to make a comment real quickly.
I was just going to say,
following Ben on Respond, because there are several people that said they haven't set up Respond or used it yet, and Ben just used the term alert. Respond does take alerting to a whole new level that the core SaaS Alerts product doesn't have, and that is that it enables you to set up SMS alerting so that it can go directly to a tech or directly to a co-managed IT guy at one of your customer instances. So it does take it to another higher level, even than just a critical alert getting sent to you by email into your PSA. So I wanted to make sure that those who haven't seen Respond yet are aware of that capability.
Yeah, and in case people didn't realize, Ben submitted a lot of rules. He wants to win all 3 prizes on our challenge.
There was a possibility.
I actually have had a couple of our partners let us know that the way that their PSA is created, they actually have the ability to alert by SMS into the PSA at an escalated level. So they created Respond rules around the critical alerts they cared the most about to ticket into that bucket so that they leveled a little bit higher than any other alerts, and they found a great value in that as well.
It's actually a great idea.
That's really good.
Awesome. Anything else, Ryan?
Not on that front. I'll let us keep moving along.
Okay, awesome. Well, so Ben, you segued us perfectly into the partner spotlight, and we're going to start with you, and we'll certainly have other partners on. Ben, how about if you tell us a little bit about yourself and Central Technology, and then I'm going to ask you a few questions around your use of SaaS Alerts, and we'll get right on into it. But this is the part I think, that, if you think about going to a conference, right, hearing from other partners, talking to other partners, this is why typically people go. So Ben, you there?
You're on mute, Ben.
Mine tie.
There you go.
Amateur move, rookie move. So we're based out of Central Virginia, actually in Lynchburg, Virginia. We have several different customers in any number of industries, from medical to law firms to even just small mom and pop shops. We saw SaaS Alerts initially as being able to fill a much needed gap in log monitoring, and I was I looked at many different ones and never found one that actually like clicked and was affordable for, you know, smaller businesses. I looked at a lot of open source ones and didn't find. I found one that it would ingest everything, but then I'm like, I don't want to stare at this forever, and that's what I was looking at doing. And then I think Tommy brought our owner brought SaaS Alerts to my attention. He said, "Hey, check this out. I heard good things," and I was more than happy to. And I started talking with you guys, and then heard about the Respond module, and I was like, "This is amazing," because that's where MSPs are going. It's you have to automate these things, and nobody can pay one person just to sit there and stare at logs coming in from all of your customers. So
Just curious, Ben, when you mentioned you're looking for some, logs, was it specific to SaaS for those logs? Because obviously, obviously cloud facing APIs aren't your typical logs, and you need, a tool like SaaS Alerts to get that information. Was that your frustration?
Specifically, we were looking for just Microsoft, the way to look for, failed login attempts and possible login scenarios, logins from outside of the US, which most of the people that we work with don't travel too much. So we were looking for something that would alert on that, because we were also having difficulties convincing people that MFA was really needed.
Yeah, that's a fad.
Yeah, I mean, it'll come and go. And so I think the first report we saw was the one where it showed all the little red dots of all the places that people were trying to log in. And I sat down one month and I'm like, that's it. And I was like, I pulled a couple guys and I was like, right, let's start generating these reports. Let's start sending them out. Let's see, who's actually who cares about this, and let's see if we can get them really pushed to getting completely covered with MFA, and those help tremendously.
That's interesting, Ben. So you used it as almost as a mechanism to push lack of MFA control.
For sure.
For sure. And then was it just bundled into the stack and upcharged? Is it sold? Do you guys just eat it as an expense? Can you talk to us a little about your approach there?
We saw it as something that our customers really couldn't do without. So we worked with SaaS Alerts and got a very reasonable price, and just rolled it into our cost, and kind of ate it and said, when we negotiate prices next time around, we can adjust accordingly. But we kind of found it to be one of those things that we didn't think we should be without.
Yeah. I love that idea. Just curious, yes or no from the audience, have you guys used it as a mechanism to push MFA the way Ben has? I think that's brilliant. Especially so you guys were looking at geo, impossible travel type things, Ben,
Yep.
as the kind of the mechanism to go, hey, your guys are crazy if you don't put on MFA.
I just thought the map with all the little red dots. I'm like, these are all the people that do want to hack you. It's not that you're too small. But yeah.
Right. So in chat, anybody using it in that way? Y for yes, N for no? Anybody? I for intrigued?
Z for asleep.
Yeah,
we will be.
Good to hear, Gary.
While people are thinking about the response on that, I just want to share with you how happy I am to hear your story. When we conceived of, in particular, the risk report that's in the report section, internally, we've always called that the oh shit report, because we throw everything on it, right? Every single living last dot that we can find, specifically to try and drive the exact scenario that you just laid out. We expected that our partners could use this as leverage to get the small business who says, I don't need MFA. No one's interested in me. I'm just a regional, fuel oil distributor with 30 employees. Who's going to try and hack me? And we all know as security professionals that everyone who has a Microsoft 365 account is a target, universally. So I'm just thrilled to hear your story and that you used it in that way.
Chip, quick question to you. Can you guys through secure through the secure score, can you guys or any mechanism CMFA through SaaS Alerts, or is that asking too much of the product? Forgive me for not
You
knowing.
mean see it?
Yeah, like
See
does
it,
a
Andrew,
company
in
have
terms
it
of-
or not? Does a company have
Oh
it?
yeah,
Oh,
absolutely.
yeah.
There,
Yeah. There's
I
already
mean,
there's a canned report built around MFA and the MFA settings and whether or not they have self-service password reset. Yeah, Ryan just pulled it up, or somebody did.
Yeah.
So here's
that's
my
built in.
question. So here's my question to everybody in chat, maybe, like, so if I'm you guys, why wouldn't you, put this into, if you have a client that is being resistant, using it in essence as a pseudo assessment and say, hey, look, let me show you how you compare to peers like you in your industry. Let me show you who's using it, what their efficacy is versus, this is how you compare to others of similar size and complexity. And Jim, we did that a lot back when you had your business. Forgive me for what it was called, but you were building a whole model of comparing to similar, because again, everybody wants to, know how wouldn't you want to know how you're doing based on your peers? So thoughts around that, Jim, to use it in that model?
100%. There's so many applications and use cases here, Andrew, in terms of, first of all, making sure your customers know that they are targets and leveraging that way. And then once they are, making sure it's enforced, right? And using Respond to make sure that people do have it on and then enforcing it, right? So
awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Jim, is there like a way in which, if someone isn't rolled it out, let's just say I have 150, but I have a big QBR coming up, they don't have it. Can I roll it out as an assessment, show them their risk and bring that in there the way Ben actually mentioned?
100%. So one of the things, and we actually teach people how to work around our billing, right? So like we bill per user, but let's just say, Andrew, your billing is on the 5th of every month.
Right.
Well, we take a snapshot on the 5th, and that's how many users we bill you for. So if you want to start prospecting or putting it on other customers for assessment purposes on the 6th, go for it. Go crazy from the 6th, basically into the 3rd of the next month. Give yourself a buffer on the 4th, and then we take the snapshot on the 5th, right? So we're all about leveraging as much as you can, even from a free assessment perspective.
That's awesome. Awesome. Ben, I back to you. I know we're at the top of the hour, but I just, I guess, any wins or saves that you might close us out with that you guys have seen where SaaS Alerts may have caught something or you caught something. I'd just love to know.
For sure. Thankfully, we don't have too many email breaches these days with all of our tools, but we did have one. I think I've told this story a couple of times. We were leaving one Friday afternoon. It was, I think, 4:30, and one of our customers, we got a SaaS alert, ticket pop in. It said this account had been logged into from somewhere else, somewhere outside of the U.S. And I was like, all right, guys, let's put our stuff back down. Let's just take a look at it before we leave. And SaaS Alerts had actually alerted us to someone that signed in. We were quickly able to jump into the account because it had, responded, had done its job. It locked out the account. But while the hacker, he was only in there for maybe a couple minutes, and while he was in there, created the rules to forward any email to the RSS folder, where I guess they could access that externally. Sent an email to the accountant requesting that their ACH for their next paycheck be changed, and knew exactly who to get to and how to do it. And I was really impressed with how quickly they were able to move. And this person also had MFA turned on, so they had all the stuff, the protection in place. So it was most likely, one of those evil proxy situations. But SaaS Alerts was there to let us know. If we hadn't had that, we probably would have left for the weekend, and that person wouldn't have gotten paid.
Yeah. Sounds like a successful spearfish and
Yep.
Good. So Jim, I know we went a few minutes over.
Yeah.
I know we didn't get to everything we wanted to, but again, I think a really awesome call. I think we're really starting to delve into how partners can, leverage it not only from an assessment, a sales side, but, getting, some insights into the feature set. So anything you want to close us out with in week 2?
We just keep building. It's all about continuous improvement, right? So looking forward to next week already.
Quick observation about next week. I believe we're doing it at 2.
Yes. Thanks for that.
Yes.
Yes.
Andrew's in high demand, so we only get him from 2 to 3 next week. But then from there on, we're on schedule at 1 o'clock every Thursday. But yes, please keep note next week, 2 o'clock Eastern.
We'll send a reminder.
Thanks, Michelle.
Thank you all for coming, guys. It's great to see you.
Thanks, everybody.
We'll see everybody in 2 weeks. I'm out next week. Have a good week.
Okay.
Thanks.
Thank
guys.
you. Okay. Bye.
Thanks, everyone.